Hi everyone, you're with Lucy, and today I'm going to show you how to make some very interesting paints and things with just household products and some watercolour paints. So one of the first things I'm going to show you is I like to use either PVA glue or school glue to make acrylic paints out of lots of different things. So what I'm actually using here is instant coffee to create a paint, and I'm adding instant coffee and PVA glue, and that makes a really lovely, beautiful brown paint. So I'm just painting it on here, and you can see it ends up with a really nice texture. Now what I'm doing here is adding some talcum powder, and this is going to make it into a paste. So I'm adding enough talcum powder in to make it a paste that I can use for stenciling. So here we have a stencil paste. So it's lots and lots of fun, and you know, you can truly have a lot of fun with some talcum powder and some school glue and some watercolour paints. After I've dried it off, I've added some darker colours, and this time I've added some black and some navy blue into the brown, and I'm also going to add some talcum powder to make it a bit of a paste, a bit more PVA, and just some beach sand. So as I add the beach sand, you'll see you end up with a really nice grainy kind of textured paste. So a lot of those texture pastes you buy, you can actually make some of them yourself. And that's not to say that I don't buy them as well. It's just sometimes a bit of fun to make some yourself. And this is just a really nice textured paste that I'll be able to do some rubbing of other colours over. So there are many things that you can mix with just having watercolour paints. Now one of the things is that watercolour paints are almost pure pigment. So if you add something like PVA to it or school glue, what you actually create is almost an acrylic paint. So if you don't have acrylic paint in a certain colour but you've got watercolours and some glue, you can do that here as well. So here I'm using a bit of the school glue or the PVA to stick some tissue paper down, and that's going to give extra texture to this bit of mixed media work that I'm doing. So I'm just sticking the tissue paper down, and then I'll paint over the top of it, and here I'm just mixing a little bit of acrylic in with some brown, a little bit of PVA glue in with the brown, and now I'm turning this watercolour paint into an acrylic again. Now the great thing about it is you normally would have difficulty painting watercolour paint over the top of something that was acrylic, but because I've added that PVA, I can certainly add that. Now this is a fun one. I'm using a little bit of white paint, a little bit of talcum powder and some PVA glue, and I'm making almost a gesso. So this is something you can use if you're doing mixed media. It's great. And here I'm going to use a piece of baking paper to just grunge it up a little bit, and this gives it like a non-brushed effect, which I'm looking for. And now I'm also painting some people down on here. Because of all the things happening in the world today, I just wanted to sort of do a picture where we have people standing together, which we all are doing. And the best thing about this as you're doing the artwork is that you can add colours to it and keep painting. So with the bit you've made, keep adding colour to it and you end up with more and more paint. And here I've added some green into it because I want to give a little bit of a verdigris look to that sand that I've put on. And it really does have a beautiful texture to it. And you can see here that as I rub, the texture of the sand comes out. So it's just plain beach sand, which is great. And a little bit of blue there as well. And now I'm just adding a little bit to make some outlines. So I've added some black again, a little bit of talc, a little bit of PVA, and that's going to make my outline paint. Now again, if I was using watercolours, this wouldn't work because they wouldn't stick down, but because I've used the PVA glue in it, I'm ending up with that nice sort of paint that I can paint over the top of anything. I'd love to see people's trials of this. It's such a lot of fun. And I'm just darkening the edges of this image using that mixture. So if you seal these containers, you can use the paint later again. Here I'm using some crushed up makeup that got broken in my suitcase, and so it's eyeshadow, a little bit of PVA in the eyeshadow, and I have a gold paint. So don't throw away those bits of makeup that get broken or end up getting thrown away normally. They actually make a great paint because most makeup is just a mica powder, and it also rubs on beautifully. So you can see here over that sand, it rubs amazing. So just using the bit of that gesso with a little bit of green in it to make the sun in the background, or the moon. And see, I'm just adding paint to it every time, and I'm just adding the watercolor paint, which is the purest, like I said, pigment. The reason I use watercolor paint is because it doesn't have a lot of fillers in it. If we use gouache, gouache already has some fillers in it. Watercolor paints don't have fillers in it, so watercolor paints are the best dyes to use to mix up with other things. As soon as you add some talcum powder, you're virtually making a gouache. And when you add the acrylic, and when you add the PVA, you're actually making an acrylic paint. So you can see here just going on finishing. So this picture was virtually made using these little, as little as possible supplies. There's a little bit of glitter. So I've only used the very cheapest watercolor paints. They were only $5 for a pack of 12. And then I've added PVA glue, or you can use school glue if you don't have PVA. It's just really a white glue. And to add some body to it, I've used talcum powder, and I've used makeup. And here we have a picture done with all those products. So I hope you enjoy this, and if you like my video, please let me know. Thanks, you're with Lucy from Art Shed Angel. Bye.